Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, we keep having awesome guests on. I keep thinking, hey, we can't keep finding these awesome people, and I keep being completely wrong. Our guest tonight is going to continue the tradition of awesome people coming on to Salty Ginger Talk. Her name is Kim Spencer. She is the CEO and founder of Crown Yourself, which is a coaching business. She also has founded Communication Queens, uh, which is a podcast endorsing business and placement business. But her story is crazy good. She is so open and honest about where she started from, the good and the bad, the people that have helped her in her life, the good and the bad. And you're just going to love this conversation. So I'm going to shut my mouth. We're going to bring her in here right now. So, Kim, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I have been crazy excited for this episode since you and I had our initial conversation a little over a month ago, I think it was now.
Yeah.
But I just love your energy. I love your message. And I love, like we talked about, that you're a real person. I mean, even though you've accomplished a lot, you've done that because of, not in spite of, some really difficult things. And I think it's going to really resonate with our audience. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share it with us.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing that leaders can do, especially in this day and age of we're seeing so much transparency, and it's the CEO of at the Coldplay concert experience, like authenticity means something in this culture these days.
Oh my gosh, totally. Oh man. So just to orient, so what we usually do, Kim, is I'll have you kind of start from the beginning and work your way forward. But I want to set the stage for our audience so they kind of know what your accomplishments are to date, because I want them to get the scope of what you've accomplished from where you started. So Kim's work has been featured in Forbes. She's given a TEDx talk, Netflix, CNBC, Oxygen. We're talking about someone here who has accomplished a lot. And I want you to keep that in mind as we kind of work through her story, because what you see, the person you see sitting in front of you, has busted her ass to create the person that's sitting in front of you. You can do it too, but you got to take action. And we're going to get a bunch of great ideas and stories from Kim about how to do that, because that's what she does now for a living. She's going to talk about the brands that she's built. But first, we're going to talk about all the shitty stuff she went through so you can really appreciate it.
Let's just dive into that pile of shit. Huh?
Totally. So, with that, Kim, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Kind of start, you're a kid, you work your way through school. If there's great stories to talk about being a kid, that's great too. But do your thing.
So I was raised by two amazing entrepreneurs. I watched my parents build a multi-million dollar arborist business where they cut and remove trees in Los Angeles, and cleared brush for fire hazards, as we all have most recently seen this past January.
Mm.
Um, they did that for 30 years. And that was all while my dad was a highly functioning alcoholic. And in that experience, watching them, like I got to have the best of what entrepreneurship parents can provide, which is belief system, unstoppable belief in like whatever I wanted to do, as long as I put the work behind it, I could do it. And I saw that time and time again. I mean, my mom was pushing me in the stroller, passing out flyers for their business when they started. And like I got to watch this thing grow, and I got to watch my dad grow a team, and I got to see the transitions of growth that happen when you take a business from infancy to maturation and then eventually sell. And there was so much belief and positivity in my home in many ways, as far as support for my dreams. The problem was that my dad was a highly functioning alcoholic, and in that space my mom was a raging codependent.
Mm.
And so the dynamic created a lot of chaos in my household. Like I it's not just the chaos of like, it was always uncertainty. Is he going to come home drunk? Is he going to come home? Am I in danger? And because from that, I experienced both emotional, physical, and sexual abuse at an early age. It was one time for the sexual, but that one time is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that the experience later on when my dad passed back in 2021, I told him I wouldn't be sharing that much of that part of our story until after he'd passed, because we had made amends. I staged his intervention in 2016. His most proudest accomplishment was the fact that he was sober off of alcohol for the last 4 years of his life.
That's
Um,
great.
that was an amazing transformation, because I say I grew up with four dads. My dad, the alcoholic, absolute asshole. Never would want him to put him around kids ever. Like, would not trust him. My dad, who was a stoner, laid back, didn't like, could close sales like crazy, just like you're everyone's best friend. My dad, the opioid addict, manic, would sometimes bring home a mantle, a slot machine, random stuff that he would buy just on a mania spree. And then my sober dad. And my sober dad was my favorite. He had a grounded presence with money, with God, with having a uh, desire to be of service to others. He was a beautiful, joyous man, but he had his demons. And I think that the best part is that I really learned what my friend Rebecca Contreras said on my podcast, which was to eat the meat but spit out the bones. There
Mm.
were a lot of bones that I was choking on for years, because in order to control my circumstances, I became a high achiever. I became a perfectionist. I had to get straight A's or else I was like doomed, like everything was going to be ruined. And I became a highly functioning bulimic with a very
Mm.
deep secret for 10 years, hiding that and covering that up uh, to support. And that was my modicum of being able to control everything. When I was 17, I was very blessed with parents that I was denied. Even though I had the grades, I chose the hardest program to go to in college, which was musical theater, where they typically only accept 20 kids across the country. And I was applying for like the most elite schools, and I was denied out of all of them. And
Ooh,
it devastated me. Like my
yeah.
childhood dream, going to, the most prestigious schools where they say, one of my mom was like, I was so glad you didn't get into that school, because they were like, we know talent. I was like, oh God, then I must not be talented. And I took it as a total identity thing. But my parents always believed in my dreams. They always supported me in my dreams. And so when at 17, my dad found an acting class through one of his customers. And he's like, Kim, I think you really need to take it. And I went and took this acting class. And my dad says, and I took it and I said, I need to be here. Like, this is where I need to be. I dropped out of the college that I did get accepted in, which was a musical theater conservatory with scholarships, multiple scholarships. 2 weeks before I was supposed to start, my parents were like, we support you. So that was the dichotomy that I had growing up. Was I had like massive support and belief, but also a lot of trauma and challenge with chaos. And I went and started pursuing my dream, which was that time the only people that I knew, because I grew up in LA, who were making the amount of money that I wanted, were the directors, producers, actors that I admired. So I pursued my Hollywood path. At 24, I got my first screenplay that I co-wrote, produced, picked up by Lionsgate on Netflix. And I'm standing there at the premiere going, what the fuck do I do now? Because I am not 100% fulfilled. And it was like lifelong dream, done, accomplished it at 24, check. And not, I was only 80%, I would say 80 to 90. And simultaneously throughout my time, because I didn't want to stay in my parents' house growing up with the chaos, I asked for a loan for a bridge job so that I could get certified as a Pilates instructor. And that was my foray into the world of fitness and the world of personal development. Because that space, I learned personal development from the nervous regulation space of Pilates and physical conditioning. And it also healed my bulimia, because within 2 years of doing Pilates, which activates your parasympathetic nervous system, it is a form of exercise that is intense. It was created by Germans, after all, but that exercise allowed me to regulate this nervous system that was constantly in sympathetic mode. It was constantly in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And from that experience, I started to see the power that the body has and the power that our minds have. and I started reading. And then when the film came out, the film is called Bro. It stars Danny Trejo. It's a niche motocross movie. That movie, I found out later that it changed three people's lives directly impacted by that film. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I
Mm.
want to change people's lives, but I don't know how. And I had been transforming people's stories from Pilates. I would change people's stories about their back pain, about their what was possible for their bodies postpartum, so many stories. And I said, I'm in the business of transforming stories. I just don't know how. At that same time, I had the opportunity to come on board as president of an e-commerce company. Originally, they wanted me as a consultant, but I saw the product and I said, I can sell that. I know where to sell that. I know every Pilates studio in the country should have that. And I came on board as a partner. I was part of that company for 2 years. And then I had a successful exit. But at that time, I didn't see it as a success because I felt like I lost my company. I felt my partner ended up buying me out. It was 3 weeks before my wedding. The whole summer that we were supposed to, take cake test, I was negotiating with lawyers, which sucked because they don't send you nice emails when you're not on their side. And and so then I got a buyout 3 weeks before we got married, jetted off with my husband and was like, what do I do when I get back? And that was when like two entrepreneurs do on our honeymoon, we were brainstorming for 6 weeks while in Italy, among other things, and tasting lots of wine and eating really good food and all the things. But I didn't know. I was like, I'm coming back to, I don't know what. I know I didn't want to be in entertainment really anymore. I know I didn't want to be teaching Pilates for the rest of my life. That wasn't fulfilling. And I was looking for this thing that combined all of it. And I said, I'd been in beauty pageants. I'd done, I saw the value of having a real high quality relationship with my husband because he wasn't my first. I did pull a Brittany when I was 22 and run off with a Navy man.
A
Um,
Brittany. Oh, I love that. Oh, keep going.
and yeah, swiftly got out of that one because it was a mirror of my own insecurities and all. The relationships were just fascinating that I had that were like once I'd healed bulimia, I manufactured the same belief system in my relationships, chose really poor partners for a few years, and then healed that piece, met my amazing husband, who I now have 3 beautiful children with. And I was his second act too, which was amazing. And then we're off on our honeymoon. And I'm like, how do I combine all these things that I have interest in? And that was when I leaped off the couch and I said, crown yourself. And my husband's like, what's that? And I was like, that's the name of my business. He's like, what do you do? I was like, something in helping people. I help people with their stories. I had no idea. I said something like Marie Forleo. And so I knew I wanted visibility. I knew I wanted a platform. I knew I wanted a movement in essence, but I didn't know how. And I also was dealing with the same limiting beliefs that I thought I'd conquered in my body, that I thought that I'd conquered in my relationships, but I'd never faced them before in my career, Joe. Like
Mm.
I always was audacious with my career goals. I always was that courageous, bold person who would just be the first one in the room. I had no problem being the only woman in a room. But at that time, I had been so I had my belief system around being bought out of the company that I had grown for 2 years was so distorted that I saw myself as a failure. I questioned my own ability as a business owner because all of those belief systems were brought up by professional men in our negotiations. And because it was in a professional setting, I took it personally and made it part of my identity.
And you
And
believed him, right?
oh, I believed them for 2 years and it sucked. I like no money, made no money in that time. Like very like pittance. It was sad
Mm.
until I found out that I was pregnant and I was like, I know this is an inner game. I know this is a mindset shift in a belief system. I also know I have a 9-month deadline to figure this shit out before I birth a child into this world. So let's get that done. So I immediately got certified in NLP, timeline therapy, hypnosis, went to town on my mindset, started actually doing business instead of playing, what I call productive procrastination, where you're doing all the businessy things that make you look like you have a nice business, but you aren't actually making sales. And I started putting myself out there and I grew Crown Yourself. And it's been this amazing movement of women and men who are just claiming authority and ownership over their lives. fast forward to 2020. I'm in Australia with my husband, who's a voice actor, and he does the Comic Cons and things. And so, ironically, we're in March of 2020 with the cast of The Walking Dead as a global pandemic was breaking out. I was like, this is funny. Like, the universe has a very good sense of humor. And we just looked at each other and we said, this is our dream, has been to live abroad. Let's go live abroad. And the past year was really challenging because my dad had been put in the psych ward for suicidal ideations. He had lost a family member to suicide, his brother, and then he went through opioid addiction rehab. He was not a pleasant person to be around and at that time. And so we were very happy to say, like, let's get some distance and live farther away. Like 8,000 miles seems like a good fit. And we stayed over in Australia as the world shut down with our 2-year-old son. And that experience was so healing for me to be able to really claim a new authority and space over life. And sadly, my father passed a year later. And then
Mm.
I lost 2 other family members and 2 family friends within that year while growing our business and still growing, while we grew 150% in my company and then having a second child. So just like the challenges have been, they don't go away. We're just like, you hit a peak of success. They don't go away. You
Right.
just get better at dealing with them.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
fast forward to here, where I now started a second company around podcast guesting and visibility, called Communication Queens. Birthed another child who's 4 months old. 4 months old now. Oh my gosh, she's gonna be 5 months in like 10 days. That's
It
crazy.
flies, doesn't it?
No, it flies. And yeah, now I'm making our dog a dog influencer. So
Oh my gosh, what an incredible story. So many questions, but one of the things I try to do on the podcast is recap some common themes for our listeners. So, one of the themes we talk about consistently on the podcast is if you want to build a good life, you have to take action. And you just heard Kim talk about her story. There were ups, there were downs, there were wins, there were call them losses, call them whatever you want. There were things that you didn't like, things you wish had turned out different, whatever. But you were always taking action. And it's led you down a path where now you've got a great marriage, you've got a great family, you've got a business that you founded, that you're growing, that you love. But that's not an easy path, but you got to where you are by taking action. And I cannot stress that enough to all of our listeners that if you want to build a life that you love, it's an action word, it's a verb. You have to do shit. And even if the stuff you do leads you to a dead end, at least you can cross it off the list and you can try something else. But sitting and thinking, I'm not saying don't plan, I'm not saying don't get educated, I'm not saying any of those things, but at some point, you got to take the shot. You can't just keep planning. Kim talked about it. How'd you say it? You said something so brilliant. What did you call it?
productive procrastination.
Yes, yes, productive procrastination. I love it.
It's a sparkling turd of productivity. Like it looks really shiny and bedazzled from the outside, but there's nothing in it. It's all waste underneath.
Yeah, I always say don't confuse activity with achievement. Being busy doesn't mean you're getting shit done. It means you're busy.
Yeah.
And there's real world tangible results when you're getting stuff done, and you'll know it. And you'll know when you're not. And it's one of the reasons that you feel unfulfilled or restless or anxious is because you know you're putting it off. You know that you're not taking your shots. You know that you're kind of shrinking from the moment instead of stepping up and meeting it. So um, if you don't mind, Kim, let's talk about the bulimia for a little bit because
Yeah.
that's something we haven't talked about a lot on the podcast, and I know it's something that a lot of women in particular. I know there's men that have it, but it's predominantly women from the research I've seen that suffer from bulimia. So, how did
Men have
you?
it, but they have it in a different way a lot of times. Like
How is that?
not necessarily are they throwing up their food, but they have what's called exercise bulimia,
Mm,
where you eat some and then you eat whatever you want and then you just work out like a beast for 4 or 5 hours. I did that
gotcha,
too. Like I did that too in my recovery phase. It was like steps 26 of the recovery.
gotcha. So, what? How did you? I guess like, what's the initial thought process? I mean, first you have to admit you got the problem, right? Did you recognize it when it happened, or were you kind of denying it to yourself?
Not initially. I mean, I struggled with disordered eating and body dysmorphia since about the time of 8 years old. When I was, because at 8 years old, I wanted to be a dancer. I've always wanted to be some form of performer.
Mm.
So now that dream is realized. I go on a lot of podcasts. So, but that 8-year-old dream of being a dancer, my dance teacher at 8 years old was like, noticed that I was early developing and was like, well, you might want to stop eating around 4 o'clock. And I was like,
Oh, Jesus.
that doesn't really make sense to me, but that planted a bug in my ear, and a bug in my brain of like, oh, is there something wrong with my body? And then looking at the career path, Hollywood is not the most kind, or at least it wasn't back in the 90s and early 2000s, to curvier women. And I've always been petite, but I got a booty. Like it's just like, I'm going to be honest. And I, as an early developer, being so young, like I started to get this exposure of like, oh, I need to adapt my body to like, I'm too voluptuous. Like I need to adapt my body to fit into this mold so I can play the 18 to younger characters and all that. And so I started just exploring dangerously. Thank God there was no social media back then. Thank
Mm.
God. And same with AI too. Like the amount of disordered eating, I am concerned for the future of like what, because it's not real.
Yeah.
And what bulimia was it was a manifestation of some way that I could control. It was a false illusion of control, but it was some way that I could control the chaos. And it came from a desire to look for something that I could control, and because I was, I couldn't move out of my house at 10. I saw my dad struggled with disordered eating as well, because whenever he would go get sober, he would do like a 40-day fast or something like that. So he just wouldn't eat. And so I'd sometimes join him on that. And then I never saw my mom say a positive thing about her body ever. Like
Mm.
I still to this day, I'm like, Mom, say something nice about yourself. Like you are a beautiful woman at 77. You are starting a third act. Like say, be kind to yourself. So I had these models that weren't like, that showed me not to love myself. And I
Mm.
didn't understand that concept. So I thought, okay, well, I can't love myself. I have to change myself so that maybe if I'm thin enough, maybe uh, if I get good enough grades, maybe if all of these maybes, then my dad will be sober. Then I can control my environment. Then everything can be in this tidy little box and we can be this perfect little family that everyone seems to think we are. And that's not true. And unfortunately, you can only control yourself. And so bulimia was my form of control. And it wasn't until I was about 16 where I realized like I really had a problem. And I'd gone off, and every time it happened because I was leaving my environment. So I went off to London for a summer to study Shakespeare, theater, all that. Like very blessed in regards to be able to do that.
Mm.
But that was the first time that I had other mirrors besides my family showing me how fucked up my thinking was about around food. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know I didn't look people in the eye. I didn't know that when I talked to them, I didn't know that I constantly avoided questions and would have these like tics and mannerisms to avoid being vulnerable. I was so deeply scared of being authentic because I was so scared of people seeing that this perfect person who everyone thought was perfect. And like, if you think of Glinda in Wicked, like that was me showing up to this camp of like on suitcases of pink, and like everyone just think I'm just perfect and I have everything all together, and not real, like not real life. And it was in that exposure and being out of that environment that I realized I have a problem. It goes far deeper. I was very skilled at acting, but acting in all the wrong places. I
Mm.
acted like I was fine when I wasn't. I acted like I was healthy when I wasn't. And I came back home, and sorry, Dad, I'm going to out you on this one. The first thing I come home to is my dad says, well, you didn't gain that too much weight.
Ugh.
And that
Yeah.
crushed me. And that allowed me to say, like, I got a problem. I think I have a problem. And my mom was horrified. My dad was like, oh, I sometimes do that. And I was like, okay, that's not the model that like we're trying
That's
to get to
not a ringing endorsement.
this is a problem. And I was very grateful for my mom because in that moment she realized, wow, her daughter was suffering. She didn't know how badly I was suffering. But it was a weird day that we had a family dinner, and I went upstairs and I was going to go do my homework, but I had a pit stop on the way, and that was to the bathroom. But the way our house was structured was the second floor, when it was put on, it did not have good insulation, so you could hear every footstep across. And so I tiptoed like from my bedroom to get to the bathroom to go throw up my dinner. And suddenly I hear this like pounding up the stairs, and my mom is hauling ass. And she runs, she sees me hovering over the toilet. She tackles me like a linebacker to the ground. I'm screaming at her. I'm so angry. And she says, Kim, I love you too much to let you kill yourself. And that was when I realized, wow, my eating disorder is actually a slow form of suicide.
Mm.
And I didn't want to die, but I also had so much shame and guilt and buried secrets that I'd kept from everyone that suddenly started to spew out. And when I started to open up and be vulnerable and be real and like be honest about how much I hated myself at the time and how much I hated like, and the experiences that I had, including, I didn't tell my parents that, well, I didn't tell my mom that I had been molested by my dad when I was younger. And my dad said, he didn't think I would remember it because he was so drunk. And that opened up this like floodgates of like, here's my deepest darkest shame secret,
Mm.
and here's everything pouring out. And suddenly that started the healing process.
Yep.
And then I was able to tell someone else. I told my cranial sacral therapist, who started working on my body and started doing like body work, and that started opening up things. And so it was this floodgates of vulnerability where I stopped trying to pretend to be somebody that I wasn't. And I started looking at, well, it's okay to admire characters in movies and maybe adopt positive habits like that. Modeling, it's good, great to have models, but so long as you're still being real with who you are and what are the enhancements you want to have from the inside, not from trying to mask things on the outside. And that's when things started to change. Plus, then on top of it, doing Pilates, being of service to other people, letting my story be of service. That was a huge piece as well, was being able to share. I never liked exercise. Like I couldn't run a mile to save my life when I was 17. I was an exercise induced asthmatic, like that national PE exam that you have to take in school. Like I failed. Like no, but could not run. But now I've run over 7 marathons. I do it gladly. I'm that weird person who actually like looks at people on the street and I'm like, oh, you're running. I would love to do that. Like, and I just didn't run for during my pregnancy, but the experience of being able to transform that story and lead with a place of authenticity. Suddenly, within a year of teaching Pilates, I was the highest paid, youngest, most fully booked instructor at the studio that I was freelancing at. And I had many conversations with clients where I was like, why did you choose me instead of another instructor? And they're like, we loved your authenticity. We loved your story. We identified with the fact that we didn't always like our bodies. We didn't like love ourselves. We struggled with exercise. We go to the gym and we're like, what the fuck do we pick up? Like, how do I do this? How do I do this in a way that works? So I found out from an early age, and I was very lucky to be able to find that out at 19 years old, that when you lead with authenticity, people gravitate towards your natural essence of who you are. But you got to have the courage to be vulnerable.
Yeah, man, so well said. And I appreciate you sharing that with our audience. It always is humbling to me that our guests are so willing to be so candid about what a lot of people consider really difficult subjects. And you did such a good job of talking about those things. There's a lesson to be learned there for the audience. You got to find someone to talk about this stuff with. The best disinfectant is always, always, always sunlight. You got to
Oh,
get shit
so
out in
good.
the open and you just got to deal with it. And it's not always fun. It's not always pretty. It's not always clean, but it's right. It's the right thing to do. And just really appreciate the way you covered that. You did such a good job. On the Pilates, well, so let me put a pin in the Pilates. I'm very curious about You talked about hypnosis therapy. I'd love to
Mhm.
hear you talk a little bit more about hypnosis therapy and your experience with that.
Yeah, so when I was pregnant. So I got certified in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. And that was an interesting process of understanding the conscious and subconscious mind and how things work together, and how there were so many goals that I'd had that I hadn't achieved. And I got became fascinated with, why is that? Like, why do we go for a goal and everything's saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to do it? Well, you can't force the subconscious mind into submission. Like, the subconscious mind is a toddler, and being able to understand how the subconscious mind works, it likes to be coaxed, it likes to have a carrot dangled in front of it. It just like a kid, it is, your subconscious mind is formed. They studies show that you're 95% of your programming is what they predict now is complete by the age of 7. And
Mm.
that's the imprint period. And so there was a lot of shitty programming that I had left over, because that was the hardest, that was the time that my dad was drinking the most. Looking back, I have a lot of compassion for that, because that was in the time that he lost his parents, and that was his only tool. And he was also abused in every way that I was. So that experience, like recognizing that these are not just patterns that are surface level, and just because you're not getting a goal, it doesn't mean you didn't work hard enough necessarily. It can also be a subconscious pattern, a subconscious belief system, a generational belief system. There was a study done with mice, and they traced it to 7 generations so far. And the first generation of mice, they had them smell a cherry blossom and then exposed them to an electric shock. And then they bred the mice. The second generation, they never experienced the actual electric shock, but when they smelled the scent of cherry blossoms, they would experience the same symptoms as if they actually experienced the electric
Mm.
shock. The same, then they bred them again. Third generation, same thing, same symptoms. So the body houses our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is everything we're not conscious of right now. Like, I'm not telling you to think of how your clothes are currently feeling on your body, but now you're aware of it.
Mm.
I'm not telling you to beat your heart. What's beating your heart for you? Your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind runs your body. And generationally, these belief systems can be passed down as well. They also can be passed down from some, depending upon your belief system, past lives. And when I work through with clients through timeline therapy, I like to preface this as, past lives can also be lives that you have deeply emotionally resonated and experienced in a dream, in a movie, in a book, on a show, in a theater, anywhere that you have deeply had that emotions, because your subconscious mind is the domain of the emotions. It's, you can't logic your way out of an emotions. Feelings
Mm.
trump thinking every time. That's why when we can talk motivation, but ultimately you got to clear out the clutter of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame in order to move forward and really progress faster towards your goals. And if you're not clearing out that clutter, that's the power of hypnosis. And that's the power of what hypnosis and timeline therapy, which timeline therapy is a blend of hypnosis and NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. And that's basically how your language dictates and frames the box of reality in which you're seeing perspective. And when you can start to shift how you're seeing your perspective and how you see the world, it changes everything. Like, for example, I said, when I was sharing my story, like, I thought of my business buyout as a bad thing.
Right. Right.
What? Talk to any successful business owner. They're like, you succeeded. Like, you got the dream. You got bought out. But that's not, like, for me, because of my framing and my perspective and the language that I was using around that experience, I saw it as a negative. So when we can shift the frame of how we view things, then the entire narrative shifts.
And does So I've heard Tony Robbins talk about NLP, and I know a little bit about it, but I'm no like that. That's exactly the correct statement. I know a tiny little bit about it. But does it help you retrain your subconscious? Is that what it does?
Yes, retrain your subconscious. It can make you more influential. And influence is a skill set that is directly tied to high performance.
Oh,
So
totally.
it not only makes you more influential with yourself, but it can also make you more influential with others. Like I have listened to politicians, and some of which I know are highly trained in NLP, and I can hear it in the language of how they frame things because of the variability of their communication.
Yeah, it's funny. I can't remember when, but there was a Harvard Business School study that they tried to identify the single most common characteristic in high performers or climbers in companies. And it was the ability to influence not only externally, but internally. So you could sell your ideas, you could sell your concepts, you could sell your programs, both to customers or external stakeholders, as well as, and probably more importantly, internal decision makers.
Yeah.
And so that's never, I've never ever forgotten about that. And I love the way you talk about authenticity. It's something that I preach to just be who you are. That is by far the best chance you have of being successful in the world. And it's very funny to me that the way that you actually gain or accomplish things is by not focusing on those things, but focusing on the process by which you can get to the place you're going. And if you fall in love with the work and you fall in love with the process and you just get up and show up every day and you forget about the goal itself. I don't know if forget's the right way to say it, but it shouldn't be your primary focus. It shouldn't be what
Yeah.
you think about every day. You know, I went through college on a baseball scholarship, and so I grew up in the athletic world, which is a great teacher of a lot of the things that we
Such
talk
a great
about.
teacher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's filled with failure, and you have to learn to fail and go back out and try again. Like right now, by the way, you don't get like I was a pitcher, and so like I this is the way I explain it to people because people ask me, how do you when like life kicks you in the teeth, which it has multiple times, by the way. I've had, all of us have had shitty experiences in our life. I've always been pretty good about dusting myself off and getting right back up and getting after it. And people say, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, so you got to understand the world I grew up in. So, at a college baseball game, it's not uncommon to have between 3 and 5,000 people there. And I was a pitcher. And so if I throw a pitch and somebody hits it 450 feet, that is instantaneous feedback. I did a bad job. There's no hiding from it. Everybody saw me throw the pitch, and everybody, depending on if you're at home, they're quiet. If you're on the road, they're screaming at you like, you suck, you're a piece of shit, right? So they give you
Oh,
another
so hard.
baseball and they give you 30 seconds. You got about 30 seconds while that guy circles the bases. And then it's time to go again to do exactly what you just failed at miserably in front of 3,000 people. Time to do it again right now. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine. We got 10 other guys that do your job. We'll go get one of them and see if they'll do it. And so you don't get to feel sorry for yourself. You don't get to cry in your beer. You don't get to have a pity party. You got to make the adjustment and you got to go after the next guy. And that's a trivial, it doesn't mean anything. It does to you when you're in the moment because like it sucks getting lit up like that. And it's happened to me a lot. And I was good. Like I was a good player and I got lit up a lot. But those lessons translate directly to life. That's how you learn to become a better husband, a better father, a better business person, a better leader. Because when shit goes wrong, people look to you. And if you stay composed and if you're speaking logically and if you don't show panic, people will model that behavior. And the
Mm.
opposite is true too. If you freak out and lose your shit when the stuff goes down, that's what other people will do. And you can't instill confidence in people when you do that. So, yeah, I love the way you talk about that. It's so good. Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think a piece of resilience is also letting the emotions be okay.
Yeah.
And that's a big one for me as I've gone through now with 3 kids, a few rounds of postpartum depression and anxiety,
Mm,
and allowing myself to just recognize. And we have a saying in our house, like, big feelings are okay. Like big feelings, totally okay. Big actions, not so much. Like you can be angry, but No punching your brother. Like you can be sad and that's okay, but that doesn't give you a right to scream at someone.
Right.
So being able to be that example in showing that big feelings are okay, but it does matter what you do with them. And sometimes I think of feelings like, because there's a difference between feelings and negative emotions, especially for your subconscious mind. A feeling biologically lasts 90 seconds. If you can allow yourself to fully feel the breadth of that 90 seconds of, you're right, I messed up. Like, oh, that makes me sad. That makes me disappointed. That makes me angry. That makes me, I feel guilty. I feel shame. I'm going to fully feel this for 90 seconds versus I'm going to kind of, oh, I feel that, but no, I shouldn't feel that. And hold on, let me stack on these shoulds. And what happens is our emotions then become this emotional Jenga set that we have all of these blocks that are kind of teetering and not really stable that are stacked up. And that's when the tiniest little thing triggers us to into an emotional response that may seem bigger than what that situation actually warranted. And that's where the power of hypnosis and timeline therapy comes in as well, because that takes down the Jenga set so that the next time you experience that emotion, okay, I'm experiencing sadness again. Like just this morning, I just overwhelming sadness. And I was like, for nothing.
Mm.
Like literally for nothing. I was just like a little sensorily overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go sit on the couch, take a sip of my coffee, let the tears come. Okay. All right. My son came over. He was like, Mommy, I love you. And I was like, thank you for recognizing. And we had a little talk about invisible owies and how mommy's just healing and her hormones are healing from pregnancy and it's normal and that's okay. And I felt better with just give it 5 minutes. But allowing for those emotional processing, I think, is also very important, um, because sometimes we can the just dust yourself off and push through. Like I did that a lot,
Mm.
and at the same time, that built up resentment against the awareness that I had and the relationship that my conscious and unconscious mind had internally within me to go for something where I would end up sabotaging myself going for something because I knew I didn't want to feel resentful about myself.
That's such a great call out. You just hit the nail on the head so well. You have to accept what's going on. That doesn't mean you have to live in it. And I love big actions or big emotions are okay, but big actions are not. That's actually how we started the podcast. We started it targeted largely at young men, and it's morphed into what it is now, which is awesome. But I looked around. I raised three boys. My wife and I have been together 33 years. We raised three sons. I always say they've got the right things wrong with them. So we didn't have drug users. They're respectful to women. They hold down jobs. They're decent guys. We got the big shit right, which is a huge like. It's my wife.
Huge.
I'm not a bad parent in any way, shape, or form, but I don't hold a candle to my wife. She's just the best parent I've ever seen in my life, and we're fortunate. The joke was always it was good that I went out and did the work and made the money because if I'd have stayed home, like our house was always a wreck, like it was chaos and everyone was happy because my wife is such a great lady.
That's
If I had
awesome.
been home, everything would have been perfect and immaculate, and everyone would have been in therapy forever. Like they never would have got better if they'd have been left with me to raise them. And it's horses for courses, you know. Um, but we would do the same thing where, hey, it's okay to feel what you feel, and then you got to get over it. So soak in it, then it's time to move on. You got to get past it at some point, but don't deny it because denying it isn't going to cut it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of
And
our boys are super emotional. I don't know if super emotional is the right way to say it because I'm not emotional at all. So anyone's emotional compared to me. I'm kind of my wife always says I have two emotions if you count hunger as an emotion. But it's interesting to me because I actually have a pretty high emotional intelligence. I can see what other people are thinking and what they're going through, and I can tailor my approach. I can't be inauthentic. I'm not good at it. Like it's very obvious when I'm a terrible liar, which works out
same.
really well because my wife is the least trusting person on the face of the earth. It's one of the things that makes our relationship work so well is she doesn't have to worry about trusting me because she knows if I ever was lying, I think I've tried it twice. Like, and I'm so bad at it. I suck so bad. I'm a terrible liar. Um, but it's okay. It's okay to be those things and then move on. But you can't just get stuck there. And that's what happens with a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's how long you stay down, and the practice of getting back up, and the practice of saying, not today. Like, we're just going to keep getting back up. And it is a practice, because sometimes, like when I had just even recently, the immense grief of losing three family members, my while being 8,000 miles away and having a child. And I'm the type that tends to get postpartum depression and anxiety around 12 to 16 weeks, way after the midwife is done with you, like way
Mm.
after they let you go. And so I had thought that I was like, oh my gosh, this is a like, oh, it must be me. And then it wasn't until my most recent midwife, it was like, oh, well, sometimes there are studies that show that some women have it delayed. And I was like, oh, finally have an answer. So I know, I'm like, okay, I have a few month timeline where I'm a little more sad and I'm a little more highly triggered. Okay, how do I buffer around that? How do I create systems? Who do I need to hire for support? So I hired a mother's helper. Like, it's about taking those micro actions. Sometimes they're very simple. And especially when I hear my brain say, like, oh, I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't feel that, I'm like, no, I need to feel that, or no, I need to do that. Like, that is immediately a sign of go forth and conquer in that space.
Mm. It's on the postpartum depression thing. It's such an amazing thing that women do to grow and bring another life into this world. And when you really stop and think about it, how on earth could you do that and then not have severe consequences after that process is over, or severe impacts? You know what I mean? Like, you're literally growing a fucking person and bring him into the world. And then the process by which you bring him into the world, I'm preaching to the choir here. You've done it and I have not. It is a crazy hard process to think that you can just go through that and then just get up and like, cool, what's for dinner? Like, no, there's got to be some repercussions to that. So I think
Yeah.
it seems to me, and look, I'm super male and I'm not qualified in any way, shape, or form to speak on this subject, other than I watched the person I care about most in the world do it 3 times. Um, it's it's got to impact you at some point, and that's normal. You shouldn't feel bad about it. I'm with
Yeah.
you. Figure it out and do what you need to do to deal with it. But like, you shouldn't feel bad or guilty about it. It's a very normal and natural thing.
And I think also it's like, not to wave like the society blame game, but I think there is a level of I was just having a conversation with a client and around birthing her business into the world. And I said, you are literally, you're creating an entity. You're creating your own entity, and it's going to take time. And she's like a little more tired, and she's like, I'm doing all these new things. I'm like, you're it just like you had a baby. You're creating new systems, like literally inside of you, and then putting it out into the world. Yes, you're going to need some more support. And recognizing that around the 4 month time, especially for women, that's when a lot of people stop stopping by. They stop like asking if you're how you are. And especially I've been doing kind of a series just in my own social media of just sharing of like, check in on your high performing friends. Like those type A got their shit together, always seem on board. They never need help. I guarantee you there is probably at least 3 areas where they could use some support right now.
Mm.
Check whether postpartum or not, but check in on them, because so often those are the ones that we are not thinking, oh, they need support because they look like they have it all together. And I'm telling you that it is uh even if they're posting vulnerably and sharing about their experiences, like that is a space to just say, hey, like, let me give you a phone call, let me give you a text, can I bring over a dinner, can I DoorDash you, can, like, just to offer another level of support, especially. And I see that more so for mothers in that postpartum phase, because at that 4 months you're supposed to be back to work, like get back to your real job, like, right? like that, those belief systems that are very deeply ingrained in society, and saying, I think we just need to reshift the conversation around the importance that what you are doing is you are literally stewarding in the next generation of humans, of humanity. And that, I take my job as a mom and as a parent far beyond my role as CEO. Like
Hmm.
that, because if I don't do parenting right, if like that job, if I mess up at that, my whatever career successes I could have don't matter to me, because that those they are my priority, and serving my community is my priority. But if I mess up with that, then that is me not living in congruence with what I preach for my community.
Yeah. On the you said it perfectly on the parenting, in particular motherhood. And look, I know society is what it is, and I get political correctness, and I'm a dinosaur, and blah 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 blah. But there is thousands of years of proof that women are better nurturers than men in general. I'm speaking very broadly. I'm not saying men are terrible people or there's not men out there that are awesome at it. But if you took a big group of women and a big group of men, you're going to find a lot better nurturers in the group of women than you are in men. With that said, I read a study that said the number one predictor of a woman being a good mother was having a supportive husband. It was more important than money. It was more important than all the other stuff. And so I think a lot of men don't understand that. And they're way too dismissive of how hard that job is. And it's easy to say, like, I think Bill Burr can be funny sometimes, but he has a rant that he does about motherhood's the hardest job in the world. I don't see a mother putting on a roof in 110-degree heat and digging ditches and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get it. And I get he's a comedian trying to get laughs. But when you think about what a shitty gig motherhood is, you get $0 for it. It's 24/7, 365 for 20 years. You don't even know if you're doing a good job of it for 20 years because they don't grow up and you don't get to judge your results until they go out in the world on their own. You can see glimpses of it, but
Mhm.
like it is totally thankless. And oh, by the way, you have to give up a big part of yourself to do it right. And like it's the hardest fucking thing in the world to do, and that's why men suck at it because we're selfish. And I'm not anti-men, I'm not yay women, I'm not a male feminist in any way, shape, or form. I just see what I see.
Mhm.
And the people that wind up in a good spot in the world almost always have a good mother or a good mother figure somewhere in their lives. And it's the best advantage my three sons have in the world is they were raised by my wife, their mother. So I just think it's super important for men to understand that and women. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not anti women in business in any way, shape, or form. I've worked with lots of super talented, super smart, super successful women. With all that said, I think a lot of women kid themselves into the fact that a career will satisfy everything in their life, and it won't. And if you don't have a great family, you're not going to be happy. And that can look a lot of different ways. I'm not saying it's got to be a man and a woman and three kids or 2.5 kids and two cars and all the other bullshit that goes with it. But uh, if you said it well, if you're not building a life that's more than yourself, you're not going to be satisfied long term. You're just not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, I love that you just have such high praise for your wife. It's so beautiful. And I heard the phrase recently called a single married parent. And I was like, oh, thank God my husband's not that. Like, he is the dad that, like, I literally have him in my phone as sexy baby daddy, because I'm like, that it was everything that I wanted in my husband.
That's awesome.
Because he is such a great steward of nurturing them and growing them. And I like the thought of changing a diaper, like, it was one of his voiceover directors actually said when I was pregnant with our first, was like, change every diaper. because she's going to be the one having the eye contact with breastfeeding. But like you, when you get to be in the shit with those kids, like you get to be the one that they go to, like there's an actual like subconscious correlation. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Just you get like to be there in the crap, and just let your kids know that you will be with them in the crap of it. And I was like, oh damn, that's good.
That
I
is
can't take
awesome.
credit for that.
Yes, that
But
is very good.
he changes a majority of the diapers, and he has always just been such a loving support. And I think that one of the reasons I think that women can be great business owners is because of that natural nurturing instinct.
Yep.
So long as you don't give away your services for free and everything for free,
Yep.
which is a problem I see with more women business owners than men. But the power of creating your own business means you get to set your own terms, which means I don't think the 9 to 5 is made for women who want to have a long-term family. And I say that as someone who is very much pro women in the workforce, but I think we have to create our own workforce to work for us, that's work for us instead of workforce being part of a system that doesn't support women in that role. Because for me, motherhood is one of the most powerful. I felt like freaking superwoman doing all natural childbirth with my 3 kids. My husband has a reverence for me that is unmatched, and actually studies show that the experience, the physical, I don't like to call it pain, but the physical pressure of labor is similar to a man breaking 20 ribs.
Ooh.
So think on that. Like,
Hey, yeah,
and
all
then
I'll
get
tell you
back
is,
up and say, you got to keep this being alive. Like, you just went through breaking 20 ribs. Here's a baby, keep it alive.
yeah, I freely cop to the fact that we got the long end of the stick on childbearing and
Boy,
childbirth.
did you.
Zero arguments. I'm like, I hear lots of, I shouldn't say lots, but I hear people say, what's more painful, getting kicked in the balls or having a kid? I'm like, having a kid. Yeah, it's not close, by the way. It's not close. It's really not. And I've taken my share of nut shots, but it's not close. I've been in, I was in sports for a long time. Like you just get everybody gets
Ooh.
jostling around and you get rung up every once in a while. But it's not close, by the way. But that it's funny. It's a funny story from when my wife, we were walking uh up and down the hallway. Her water had not broke yet, but she was having contractions. And so we were young and inexperienced. We were super young when we got married. I was 21, she was 19. And we had no fucking idea what we were doing. Still don't, but now, we're a little bit older and we have no idea what we're doing. And we're walking the hallways to the hospital to see if we can get something going. And I'm reading a magazine, and she literally knocks the magazine out of my hand and says, "It's your fault we're here. You did this." And I said, "Hey, I was there. This wasn't rape. You can pipe down a little bit." I said, "I'm happy to walk with you, and I know it hurts, but like that's not acceptable. That's not going to work." We can laugh. It wasn't funny at the time, but we can laugh about it now.
Oh yeah. My husband, when I was in labor with my first, he didn't know what to do. Like he
Mm.
didn't know how to be with me. I mean, when you have someone, the love of his life, like in what he sees as pain,
It's a yeah, it's a
it,
brutal process to
it's
watch.
hard to be in that space and to be in a space of such discomfort. Um, that I'm sitting there with my doula and my birthing ball, and we're in our apartment, and my husband comes out and whips out his laptop. And I was like, honey, love you. I don't mind that you need, are not sure what to do in this scenario. Put that shit away or go in the other room. And over the course of a few children, like it is one of the most beautiful and intimate experiences to just be able to be with someone who knows how to hold you in that space. And while I can be very strong and very masculine energied and very driven in many ways, my husband is my safe place where I get to come home, and I get to be just I get to melt. And that's the safety that a secure man can be, and that secure masculine energy. And it's because he did the work. He did the work on himself after his first marriage fell apart, and fell apart brutally.
Mm.
And he lost everything. He lost his wife, he lost his best friend because he took his wife, and he lost his $1 million real estate business, like lost his dogs, lost his house, lost his like mom, dad, all within the span of a few years. And he did the work. And what attracted me to him at first, like, is when I first met him, was he owned up to like his share of like how he thought he was doing the right things, but he actually wasn't. He wasn't doing certain things that could have benefited the marriage more.
Sure. Yeah.
There wasn't as much open communication as we have. And so like I tell him constantly, I'm like, if I ever run into your ex-wife, I'm just giving her the biggest hug. Like, thank you. You train, like, he is amazing. Because he had to have that, like, he had his 7 years of being single before he met me. And that that time he really did the work on who he wanted to become. And at the same time, I was doing my inner work on who I needed to become, and tripping and falling and failing and making mistakes, and that's okay. I think it comes down to, do you do better every day? And I have a simple little formula of a did better, do better. And I just check myself pretty much every day. I'm not perfect at doing it every day, but did better, do better. I'm like, ooh, I did this really well today. Like, I was able to really have a deep conversation with my son. Do better. Got a little spicy with the second one, because man, second children, what is it? The second child. I don't understand. But that, and being able to have that, just that awareness of like, here's what I did better, here's what I do better, here's what I can do better about it next time. And that constant growth of Kaizen, and choosing to have that awareness and self-evaluation, not to the point of where you are flogging yourself, because I work with a lot of high achievers, myself included, recovering professional like villain in your own story, because you will take all of the blame, you will take all of the ownership, and then you'll take other people's ownership as well. And that's not actual ownership. That is a lot enabling other people, and prevents them from actually taking their fair share of the 100% that they contributed. Because it's 100% in a relationship, whether it's business or personal, it takes 100% of you and 100% of somebody else. You are not allowed to take 10% of your partner's ownership, your kids' ownership. I had a conversation with a very successful client of mine, and he was still really challenged by where his ex-wife was in her financial circumstances. And they'd been divorced for like 5 years. And I was like, well, do you abide by your, legal agreement for the support that you've agreed to pay? Yes. Do you take your fair share of ownership? Like, do you feel it was a fair agreement? Yes. When are you going to stop taking your wife's share of responsibility for her life circumstances, for where she has chosen to be after
Right.
choosing not to be with you? And that moment caused such a ripple effect of breakthrough into his level of ownership, not just for the relationship that he was in with his new wife, or the woman who would become his new wife, but the ownership that he took in his company, the ownership that he took as a leader with those that he was stewarding and guiding, because suddenly no longer were the problems all his. It was, oh, Susan forgot to didn't turn in her work on time, and thus it delayed on client delivery. That's not on you, dude. That's on Susan.
That's right. Yeah, no, I love that. And it's a perfect segue to talk a little bit more about Crown Yourself. So you talked previously about having the epiphany of the name of the business. And let's talk about the business itself. Educate us, educate everybody that's listening on Crown Yourself.
So we focus on being the mind architects of high performers who are typically founders in their company, and helping them grow into their next level of ownership, visibility, and authenticity. And it has been the joy of my life to watch leader after leader come through our programs to really step into a new level of courage, because ultimately that's what it takes. And if we were to look at the emotional scale of like what emotions actually vibrate as on a scientific level, Courage is the tipping point into all of those higher emotions that we want to have and cultivate, of love and joy and peace. But you got to get courageous. You got to have the courageous conversations. You got to take the courageous, bold actions of influence and ask for the sales. You got to take that courageous, bold action and ask for the partnership, the deal. Put yourself out there in another way. And it's not just blasting yourself out there to the world, it is being very intentional with the boundaries that you're establishing with the relationships, the level of tolerance that you have with the behavior that you'll tolerate, both in personal and professional circumstances, and how you show up as your highest and best self. And that is such a joy to witness the transformation that when people come to me to like work on their business, I'm like, you realize that's going to impact all the rest of your life, because we
Right.
don't live in just a silo. We are holistic beings. And one of the questions that I love before any client works with me is before any session is, I have, what's been going on with your body this past week? Because the body keeps a score. The body tells me, oh, they're having shoulder pain. They may be shouldering too much of a burden. What is the burden that they're carrying? So I get to look at all these subconscious clues and see where those blocks, limiting beliefs, struggles, challenges, ways of defining themselves, ways of showing up are, and present it to them, because you can't see the label from inside the jar. And so I get people who are in the jar and they're like, give me the label as far as so I can see what's in here.
That is awesome. And how, so I'm trying to think of the right way to ask the question. How did you develop the business model?
So the business model, it has taken multiple evolutions. So
Sure.
initially it was just one-on-one coaching. Then it turned into the one-on-one breakthrough sessions. That was all I did. Then I had clients wanting to work with me longer term. So we developed it into longer term packages, longer term growth. Then turned into, because we were successful with the one-on-one, I wanted to bring in more programs and to support those that weren't at, dropping 15K for a private coach, or 25K or 60K, whatever our packages were at the time. And so I started developing smaller programs. And in 2021, we had 9 courses running and 2 memberships along with our private client roster, and grew 300% in 2020, 150% in 2021. And I was exhausted and burnt out.
Mm.
And I looked at the entire model and I said, what do I most love about this model? And I said, I love the one-on-one. I love doing the one-on-one. I completely know it's not scalable. I completely know I can only work with a handful of clients, but if I work with a handful of the right clients that are at that space where they want more visibility, they want to step out with more authenticity, they know there's another level of high performance that they can achieve, but it's not going to come from the identity that they've established as to who they are. Those are my people. And most of my clients come to me when they're in transition between, they have a business, it's very successful, and they're transitioning into another business that has their heart. Maybe it's authorship, maybe it is a personal brand, maybe it is another business like a retreat center, but they are in that space of transition. They're wondering how to do both and how to pivot into the one that's really grabbing their heart and pulling them forward, and how to build the sustainable ecosystem for the first one as well, how to make sure that that stays running and successful, while they are taking longer leaves of absence, in essence, from managing it. And that transformation, when I really got dialed in as far as like, these are the people that I love to serve, I'm just going to do one-on-one. Because at that time I had 2 babies, and then I came home from Australia to help my mom with navigating managing 3 estates. And if you've ever had anyone pass in your family and they have estates, it is like adding an extra business
Oh,
per person. It is the amount of paperwork and time and back and forth and conversations. And by the way, you're grieving. So it's like, it's so much extra on top of that. So I was very happy. I dialed that back, and I had started the insemination of our second business had started in 2021, which was Communication Queens, which really teaches the power of the podcast and how guesting on other people's shows can be a powerful, leverageable tool for not only expanding your own influence for your business, but also for generating leads, referrals, and sales. And so I literally wrote the book on that last year. It's called Make Every Podcast Want You: How to Become So Radically Interesting You'll Barely Keep from Interviewing Yourself, and launched that last year. And we were serving clients as a done for you agency by taking that step back with Crown Yourself and just focusing on delivering high quality, high ticket coaching to those that were really a fit for me. It allowed me to grow and scale an agency that taught me so many lessons in capacity, and capacity and alignment. And as much as I loved our done for you agency, where we did all the end to end booking and all the things,
Oh,
my capacity in doing that with my team and in growing a team, and then getting pregnant again, and then recognizing this is not the model for me, that was humbling to say the least. I let go of 85% of my team in Q4. We pivoted into more of a consulting done with you model where we build out the systems. We work with our clients now who are building their authority, their thought leadership businesses. And we build out the systems to support them in having sustainable ecosystems for visibility. And then I get to serve in my genius zone, which is in coaching and in guiding and in facilitating the overall strategy, but not in the actual doing of the doing. And we're not also navigating the back and forth with podcasters, which, no offense, like I love podcasters. I am one. I have been one for 5-6 years, but there are some podcasters, the back and forth, the systems, and then we experienced bottlenecks with our clients of like, hey, if you go on vacation to Majorca, like just let us know. Like if it like let us know so that we don't book you on podcasts, because then that affects our reputation and your reputation, and then we have to go back and forth and all of that. And so we pivoted the model into one that is much more sustainable and holistic for me, and I love it now. It took me some time to forgive my business for not being everything that I wanted it to be.
mm,
And for also being a coach who works with a lot of founders, and for having what initially I thought of as a failure because I had to let go of 85% of my team, which was devastating. Because I love not only serving our clients, but serving my team. But when I let go of our 85% of our team, and we now just have a beautiful, like nice little compact little handful of team members on our queen team, where we are just rocket fuel. And that clearing away of what was not in alignment and the model that wasn't working for us was liberating, especially going because I was 6 months pregnant. And I had to do it fast because I was gonna have a baby.
yeah, right.
And also made the very conscious decision, because she is my last, that I was like, I'm not going to work really for 40 days. I had the most inspiration that I've ever had in 40 days, but like I wanted to take that time to just be with her, and it was amazing. So
Yeah,
that's where
that's
that's
awesome.
where we're at today.
Well, so one thing I want to point out just to the listeners is so you heard Kim talk about, working with really successful people. And the analogy or the example is a better way to say it that I use is Tom Brady. So Tom Brady is widely considered to be the best quarterback that's ever played in the NFL. And he won 7 Super Bowls. He played for 20 plus years, blah, blah, blah. He had, at any point in time, a head coach, an offensive coordinator, an offensive line coach, a quarterback coach, a running back coach, an offensive line coach, a receivers coach, and various other people that were helping him. So, if you want to tell me that you don't need coaching, you just have to convince me that you're better at what you do than Tom Brady was at quarterbacking NFL offenses. And I'll listen. I'll listen to your argument. But until you convince me, I'm going to tell you coaching is a good thing for people. And I think Kim said such a wise thing. You can't see the label from the jar, from inside the jar, right? So when you are in the thick of it and when the bullets are flying, It's very hard to be objective. It's very hard to rise up above all that and see the bigger picture. And if you have trusted advisors who will tell you the truth and who will help you with your mindset and your thought process and organizing your approach to things, it is invaluable. You get such an ROI on that spend. I just
Mhm.
heard a lot of people talk about, oh, the coaching industry. And are there bad coaches out there? Sure. Are there bad doctors out there? Sure. Are there bad lawyers out there? Sure. Like you could say that about any industry. It's funny. I got in a huge argument with my sisters one time because I said at any point in time, 50% of the doctors that are practicing medicine are below average. Well, that's fucking math. Like that's just statement of fact. Now, I'm a lot
Yep.
better at math than my sisters are, not because they're girls, but because I'm really good at math. And so they were like, that's not true. I'm like, yeah, it's always true. That's math. That my statement is 100% true 100% of the time. Well, you can't, those people worked hard. I didn't say they didn't work hard. Well, those people learned a lot. I didn't say they didn't learn a lot. I said they're below average. That's how it works. Like you got to know who it is that you're working with.
Hmm.
So totally get it. But my point there is there's lots of really good coaches out there. And so if you are one of those high performing people and you are, say you're running a business and you want to pivot, or say you're running a business, you're not sure what to do next. Say it took off on you and you're not sure what systems and processes to put in place or what strategy is going to get you to the next level. Like, you know, in the construction world, it's not hard. I know that sounds pompous, but it's the truth. It's not hard to build $1 million business. It's
Yep.
not super hard to build a $5 million business. Going from 5 million to 10 million is fucking nuts in construction because you lose control of it if you don't have systems and processes in place by which to deal with it. And if you don't change your mindset from, well, you used to be the one in the truck going out and doing quotes, and you used to be the one that took the checks to the bank, and you used to be the one that kept the books. You can't do all that stuff in a $10 million business. You've got to figure out systems and processes by which those things still get done correctly, but not by you, but by people who care about it similarly to or as much as you. And that's what a good coach can help you do. They can help you think through that. They can help you plan that. They can help you with your mindset around those things. So that's my shameless plug for coaching.
Well, thank you, Joe. Like, couldn't have said it better. I completely agree. Um, because also, and there's a lot of coaches that focus on top down approaches. And so top down is like the mindset into the physical. But I also like one of the things that I love doing is because of my background starting in Pilates. Like I see how the body keeps a score of trauma, of stress, of how it's holding things. And one of my clients was struggling with like grasping a situation. Well, what was happening when her with her hand? Oh, she was having carpal tunnel syndrome in
Mm.
her hand. And it was showing this symptomology by literally bringing it to awareness. She was able to not only see what she was having trouble grasping in her business, but then she was able to somehow, the carpal tunnel went away. Not saying I'm magical. I'm not saying I'm magical at all.
You're not saying you're not magical either, right?
I cannot disclose a secret.
Oh my gosh, totally. No, look, there's been a lot of scientific studies that have tried to explain those types of associations without success.
Mhm.
And one of the things I love about our podcast is we have all sorts of different people on with all sorts of different experiences, all sorts of different concepts, and we are 100% non-judgmental. You know, someone came on was like terribly anti-Semitic or terribly misogynist, we would shut that shit down. But
Yeah.
short of those just very obvious out of bounds scenarios, we want people to experience and learn as much as they can and then make their own decisions. And I don't understand why people are so dismissive of alternate points of view or call it whatever you want. Why not learn about it? You can still disagree with it after you learn about it, but wouldn't you want to learn about it? Wouldn't you want to at least know what the options were so you could make those choices? And so we've had lots of people on the podcast who have talked about being able to see energy in people and see blockages in people. Like, hey, I can see the energy in a person and I can see that they're carrying this trauma in their shoulders, in their hips, in their knee, whatever the case may be. And I can't explain it. I know there's not any scientific data to back it up, but it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense to me. It just makes a lot of sense. It really and truly makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it comes with curiosity. Like that is a deeply held value of mine, is just allowing yourself to be curious. I mean, whether it is in exploring alternative ideas or in just exploring the possibility that maybe why Joe Schmo asshole cut you off in traffic is probably because he's has someplace else to be. And so instead of like getting angry at this person, why not just say, wow, I guess he needs to be someplace faster and than I do right
Yeah.
now. And just allowing yourself to be curious, because I think when we can open ourselves up to curiosity, that is when we can really shake the frame of what we see and what we perceive to be reality, because all reality is our perceptions. And so when we can look at and question what we think we know, that's a big one. Oh, I know this. Like that one drives me crazy when my kids use that. Oh, I know, mom. I'm like, oh, and you're 8 years on this planet.
You know
You
what I always do?
know.
Yeah, I always do. That's kids. Like I don't throw stones because I live in a glass house. I tell people a
Yep.
lot, it's too bad you didn't know me when I was 20 because I knew fucking everything when I was 20. And you didn't even have to ask me. I would just tell you I knew everything. And it turns out I've gotten a lot dumber over the years because I'm 53 now and I don't know shit. Like I know nothing. And there's so many people that know so much stuff and they're willing to give it to me and tell it to me for free if I ask a couple of questions and shut my mouth. Like it's the best thing in the world. But when someone goes in that know it all, I know. Well, I actually did a podcast episode on exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Question your strongly held beliefs and their beliefs because you don't actually know. But I'll just ask questions. I'll just keep asking questions. Can you explain it to me? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. So could you explain it to me? You said you know. Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old and make it make sense. And then just shut up. Let them talk.
Yeah.
It's a great way to back people off of that. I know. Doesn't sound like you know. Sounds like you
And
said you knew, but you don't.
there's such a big difference between knowing and doing, because so often, and I see this so often with clients, like I just today I was on a call, and she's like, I know I should be doing this. And I was like, uh-huh, uh-huh, yeah. And she's like, well, aren't you gonna like push me or coach me? I was like, no, you literally just said you know what you should be doing. You're not doing it. I cannot go move your arms. I cannot fly to New York to go move your arms to do the thing. Are you gonna do it? Oh, I guess I probably should. Again, we're shooting ourselves. We cannot keep shooting ourselves. And finally, within the course of just looking, I said, well, let's make the plan of action, because obviously you know what you should be doing, but do you have the plan? And that was where she was getting tripped up. It wasn't on the why. She knew why she needed to do it. She knew what she needed to do, but it was the how.
Yeah.
And she was tripping over this tyranny of how do I get started? How do I do this one thing? And it was a tech glitch, a tiny little tech thing. And I just said, well, let's just play. Like, let's just, you ready? I said, do you want to play with me? And she's like, yes. And I said, we're going to play AI. And I just typed in the tech issue that she was having into ChatGPT.
Yep.
Solve the problem. There you go. And I'm not saying that ChatGPT, because a lot of people are saying, oh, the coaching industry is going to be replaced with ChatGPT. And I was like, well, some people will. They will leverage AI as their echo chamber for their own belief systems.
That's right. Yep.
AI constantly, like there are so many stories that are now coming out of AI advising people to go off their meds and
Oh,
do
Jesus.
something. Yeah, like serious consequences. One person, it advised them to like literally end his life to be with AI.
Yikes.
Like, AI is a tool,
That's
and
right.
we want to, it's a tool that is going to take over many industries, and we have to know how to leverage the tool. It's the same when the internet came online. It's the same with Google. Like, we have to know how to leverage and have sovereignty within ourselves to be able to take ownership of how we use the tool so that we don't become the tool who gets used by the tool. And with the coaching industry, like, I think, yes, some questions can get supported by ChatGPT. But I had a client the other day who was struggling with a problem, and she's like, I've asked AI, I've gone through it. Like, can you take 10 minutes and just brainstorm this out with me? I was like, okay, let's do it. And I said, but first, before we do, here's all my ChatGPT prompts that I highly recommend to build any system that you want, from idea to income. And she's like, it's not really about that. I said, okay, well, what's it really about? And she said, well, it's an alignment piece. And I'm like, so you're asking AI if you are in alignment? If you have to ask the question if you are in alignment, I'm gonna guess the answer is no.
Right.
And she's like, oh, I knew you were gonna say that. And I was like, uh-huh. So what do you have to do to get back into alignment? Because she was making a business decision between starting a second business now or waiting till her first business was more fully sustainable. And she made the decisions herself. And I said, well, there you go. Like, that's, sometimes we already know what we have to do. We just need that reflection of like, yes, that's exactly what you need to do. Like, we just need to stop doubting ourselves and our intuition. But so much of education has taught us that someone else outside of us has the answer. And so until we learn how to trust ourselves, coaches aren't going anywhere, because
I,
the best coaches will teach you how to trust yourself.
and you got to be honest with yourself. If you want to be a leader and if you want to get stuff done in the business world, you got to be honest with yourself if you're actually doing your best and trying your hardest, or if you're allowing yourself to be paralyzed with fear, with indecision, or analysis paralysis, whatever you want to call it. Um,
I think society really accepts pity as a trade for results,
right?
unfortunately. Yeah, just unfortunately, like, I mean, and I've had to catch myself on this too, like 100% calling my own bullshit out,
Me too.
because
Me too.
when you're like, oh, I want to, you're sharing how hard you're trying and how hard you're working. And one of the best gifts that my mother ever gave to me, a couple years ago, was she was like, you know what you should do? Get your shit together. Do it. Like, oh, you're right.
It's brilliant in its simplicity, isn't it?
Brilliant. And it's what I call one of the Trojan horses of our subconscious mind. We have safety or familiarity. That's why we stay in bad relationships when we know we shouldn't. That's why our bank account moves, but not that much. Our weight doesn't move, but doesn't move that. Like, we try, but it doesn't, because we're very familiar at that weight, financial level, success level,
Mm,
relationship, etc., family dynamics, all the things. We're very familiar in it. So it provides us an illusion of safety. The other Trojan horse is control. And that was where that was mine that I chose. I was like, bulimia, I can control my downfall.
mm,
Hooray, let me control this spiral. And then we have the third one, which I think is actually the hardest one, which is societal acceptance.
mm.
Because you will get praise for trying. You will get praise for doing the thing. Oh, I did it too. Let's commiserate around this thing that we tried to do but failed at, instead of saying, you know, I'm going to call you out. You're blaming your kids, your circumstances, your life, your experiences. It's not sexy to be the friend. That's why I have a nice handful of friends, and that's about it.
Yeah,
To be
right.
the friend who calls you out and says you are looking for pity in this situation, instead of looking for how you can make the best of it. And a lot of society will allow you to be in your own pity party, unfortunately, because they don't yet have their dreams. And so you going for yours, it it's masquerading as tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, I have empathy, but I rarely have sympathy.
Mm.
And I tell people you'll find sympathy in the dictionary between shit and syphilis. You're not going to find it with me. Um, like it's really that straightforward. Like everybody has hard shit.
Yeah.
Like you're not special. I get it. I'm more than willing to help you work through your shit, but like I can't push you up a ladder. You got to climb. That's how it works. And that's, that's the entire essence of our podcast is we want people that want to take control. Not easy, not pretty, not simple, not fun sometimes, but it's worth it. It is so worth it if you're willing to just take control of the things you actually have control over and stop thinking about or worrying about the things that you don't. Very easy to sit here and say, much more difficult to execute in the real world. And again, glass houses, don't throw stones. I'm
Mm-hmm.
guilty of all the same things I preach. I don't follow them all the time. I think I'm better at it than most people most of the time, but I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. I suck at some of the things I preach.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all a learning process. And one of the things that was a huge change for me, Joe, was when we changed our KPIs from being effect based to cause based.
Mm,
And I went through every KPI that we had, and then I went through every KPI that I have personally. And I was like, is this effect based or cause based? Because so often, especially like revenues down, profits down. Okay, that's an effect. What are the causes? And
yeah.
when we can look at the causes, especially when it comes to money, when it comes to our body, when it comes to our relationships, oh, the cause is that you're not having time for intimacy, not just having sex as a couple, but having those intimate conversation moments of being able to feel bonded and looking into each other's eyes. Oh, that's a cause. That's something that you can actually have as a KPI personally of, oh, if I realize if I work out 5 times a week, suddenly I feel better. I feel
Mm,
better about myself. Okay, that's something that you have agency over. And when you can look at your life as far as like, what are the things that I actually have agency over? I don't have agency over when my daughter wants to feed. She wants to feed when she wants to feed. Like that, like that's something I have agency of. Like, do I serve her or do I let a bottle of freshly pumped milk serve her? That's a choice. And I prefer to just do it myself because it's easy. But I don't, even with our kids, like sometimes that's where I find the struggle of like, okay, I need to remove myself from the identity of their behavior just means that I'm a bad mom. No, that's not necessarily true. It means maybe there were some things that I could have said nicer or structured better to have them understand a concept. But okay, that's in the past. How can I move forward? How can I lead better? And when we look from a place of being at constant cause, I know the Navy SEALs call it extreme ownership.
mm.
And it's taking extreme ownership, but it's not taking extreme ownership over other people's behavior. And yes, you are of energetic influence to their behavior. Like we already talked about, the power of influence is a pinnacle of in high performance. Like you must be able to understand, master, and practice influence on a regular basis. And you can influence someone's behavior, but ultimately they have to take responsibility for their actions and choices.
Yes. It's uh the Matrix, the movie The Matrix. There's a scene right at the beginning where the woman that's running from the agent jumps through a window. She does the crazy thing and she lands and she's got the guns pointed and she's just sitting there. And she says to herself, "Move, Trinity." Like that is such a good scene in that movie. And it's so basic,
Oh, so good.
but it's that is the key to life. Like, fucking go, just go. Like, you can figure the rest of it out. The hardest part is the first step. And it sucks sometimes. Like it's not always gonna be fun, but like you just gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Again, very easy to say, a lot harder to do in a lot of circumstances. But courage doesn't mean not being scared. Courage means being scared and doing it anyways. And I try to make sure people understand that. There's nothing wrong with being scared. There's nothing wrong with being intimidated. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. There is something wrong if you let it stop you from going after what you want. You gotta do the hard swallow and you gotta go after it. Or you're never gonna be happy.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, yeah.
What do you feel still at this stage that you are needing to be more courageous in?
Um, when I think about it, I could show my softer, more emotional side to more people. I don't do a good job of that at all. And that when I think about it, there's two reasons. One, I'm naturally wired that way. I'm not the most I'm not the most touchy feely guy in the world. However, it's interesting because there is, like you talked about, having a small group of friends. And I'm serious. I was really and truly born without the give a fuck gene. Like, it really does not matter to me what people think of me. Again, I don't want to be perceived as a jerk or a bad person or any of those things, but I am who I am, and that's either good enough for you or it's not. However, the people that are close to me, I get so much value from those relationships that sometimes it's really hard to be a person close to me because, like, I count on them for fucking everything. You know what I mean? And that can be difficult, especially with such a strong personality like I have, and then a strong will like I have. I could do a much better job of uh of showing that part of me to other people so they know it exists. And it's so interesting you asked me that question because, like, my youngest son just got engaged, and he's the first one. His two older brothers are still
Aw.
still searching, and so the youngest one just got engaged, and his fiance, love her, she's a great girl, but we didn't get off to a good start. And it was because of me that we didn't get off to a good start. 100% me, by the way. So he had been like, he was very interested in her, and she'd been just gotten out of a tough relationship, and she didn't want to commit, and blah blah blah. And so, I'm exactly the alpha male. I'm the silverback gorilla in real life, for sure. That's who I am. And so he said, do you guys want to come down? Because he lives in Cincinnati and we live in Cleveland. And so he said, do you want to come down? And I said, yeah, let's come down. I said, I'm just telling you, if I meet her, um, I'm going to ask questions. So, like, I don't want you to be surprised when that happens. And so we went out to dinner and everything was nice. And I don't drink, but everybody else had margaritas. And we get done with dinner and they thought it was over. I was just waiting. I didn't want the distraction of the food and the alcohol and all the other stuff. And I said, so, like, look, I haven't been on a date since the first George Bush was in the White House. So I've been out of the game for a long time, but I don't understand this at all. You got to make it make sense to me because I didn't want him being used, and I may have overstepped my bounds. That very well could be true. But anyhow, it was not a good night for her. It was tough. And I'm very good at asking questions and saying nothing for a long time. And you know how that uncomfortable silence hangs over people. I know,
Yeah.
um, and I use it to its full effect on many occasions, and I use it that night. So she's still a little bit scared and intimidated of me, and it would be good for her to know the other part of me actually exists. Because I think right now she thinks, I'm some cross between, I don't know, like the Terminator and Jean Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport.
Oh.
But that's my long-winded answer. I know I could do a better job of that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with me. And like I see you have so much heart. And I think that you are such a great role model for recognizing and having that self-awareness, especially as a man, and saying, this is something that I need to work on because we all have that stuff.
For sure.
Like we all do. And it's like for me, courage it's my driving force, but sometimes it's also the thing that I fear. And sometimes like just today I was the litany of things you need to get done as a CEO is long sometimes, and today was one of those days. But I had to have the courage to say, I will not be at my best doing these actions and these tasks if I don't do a meditation first.
Mm,
And taking the and knowing that time, it's going to push that off. It's going to make me, it's going to have me work later, but I'll do it in such a better headspace. I'll enjoy it more. And I had much more presence in the moment of doing all the things that I needed to do, and being grounded rather than up here spinning, thinking and resenting the experience of the progress. I mean, so for me, my courage is happening. I'm sourcing my courage in the present moment, because sometimes, oh, when you're in the thick of three kids, like, I know it's been a minute for you, but like sometimes I'm like, I need to have the courage to just walk away and not like say what's on my mind, because they're not an adult to where I can speak the same language necessarily. So I need to take a moment, frame it into 5-year-old speak, and then and then be able to come in a way that can be received, and because it's different. And that's like, for me, that's my courageous moment, because I'm like, I am all about how do I, and constantly I ask myself, like, how can I do this better? How can I parent better?
mm,
Because it's a primary role for me, and it makes me a better coach. It makes me a better leader for my team. It makes me better in thinking, how can I be more creative and more influential in this circumstance? Because the law of requisite variety is a really cool law that I'm obsessed with. It's basically, the person with the most behavioral flexibility wins the day. And
mm.
some often we can get so stuck in our way of being, and that's just who we are. And like, my clients pay me very well to go and, like, I'm going to go at your belief system. Not so much my 4-year-olds. And so I'm like, okay, I need to reshift my approach, have a little bit more behavioral flexibility to say, okay, buddy, like, let's reframe how we're thinking about this. Let's nurture that language barrier that's still coming on board at this point, and be able to have the courage to step away. Like, that's my space, because I can go in like a bull in a china shop.
Oh my gosh, I'm totally with you on that part of it for sure. The first part about being able to step away and kind of look at things, it reminds me of one of my favorite questions that I ask people, because for whatever reason, it's very funny to me, because even as kind of aggressive and straightforward as I am, even as a kid, like my entire life, people have sought me out to talk to me about hard shit and
Yeah,
stuff.
same.
Yeah, stuff I wouldn't think, I would not be the person I would think of to come to with these issues. Now, with that said, it's always very humbling to me that they trust me with all the, like, some of it's really deep, dark shit. Um, and I always process it. And I think the reason they do it is because they know I'm not judgmental. Like, I'm not judgmental. I'm just not. Um, but I ask, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? Like, what's your goal? And sometimes being right is more important. You know, if it's ethical, like if it has to do with your marriage, um, I need to be right. Like, I always say, you'll never hear about, I'll never have a Coldplay moment. Like, you'll never see that. I won't wind up in some Three's Company scenario that looks like I was out doing something I shouldn't have been doing, but it's all a big misunderstanding. And Mr. Roper is going to come bursting through the door here pretty soon. I'll never wind up in that situation because I refuse to be in that situation. I just won't. But there's a lot of times in life where you have to choose if you want to be right or if you want to be successful. And I would argue that in most instances, being successful is more important. Like, if my wife and I disagree on a subject and it's a meaningless subject, why do I fucking care? Let her be right. Fine with me. I want to be successful. I want a successful relationship. I want a successful marriage. If somebody tells me something I already know, I've learned to just say thank you. I appreciate that. Not already knew that. Well, good for you, fucking smarty pants. Now you just shit on someone who was trying to help you and you're discouraging them from speaking up. You make them feel stupid because they told the boss something that he already knew. Like, what's your point? Aren't you supposed to be the leader here? Why don't you act like one? You know, like the successful part's way more important to me in almost every instance, unless it's ethical or moral, and then to ethical or moral, and then right trumps the day every time.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that question of do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? Because we will hold on to our egoic constructs of being right. But you have to be right. You have to be wrong about who you have been, how you have operated in order to be right about what you want to achieve. And probably my most opened email in 9 years of having my coaching business, literally the subject line is, "You're wrong." Kid you not? That email got 70% opens. People were like, I'm wrong. And it was all about the identity that you have to strip away, the beliefs that you think you're so right about. Oh, I need to be right about how hard it is growing a business with kids. I need to be right about how challenging it is navigating interpersonal team difficulties. And I need to be right about how this is an unhealthy work environment. Or do you just want to achieve your goal?
Right? What if you're wrong?
Yeah.
What if you're wrong?
What if oh, that's my husband's favorite question to ask, especially in the past 5 years. He's like, I don't know, maybe. Like anytime anyone's like, well, you should be upset about this. He's like, I don't know, maybe. He's like, I don't know. I don't have the full information on this. What I think we need the skill set in this next decade to refine as a leader will be your skill set of discernment, not just with like AI and fakes and misinformation and all that, but the discernment of understanding where you want to be focused on and being discerning on what you let steal your emotional bandwidth and energy.
It's yeah,
It's only going to speed up now with AI.
right. Yeah, it's I watched where was it? I can't remember. I saw a video that purported to be Vice President Vance making outrageous statements at a Project 2025 speech. And like, it was crazy stuff like the people that don't think like we think need to be whatever,
Yeah.
exterminated or like it was clearly AI. Like, and I've been sent those. So I have people on both sides of the aisle and got it. Again, non-judgmental. You get to be who you
Yes.
want to be, you get to believe what you want to believe, fine with me. But I always just ask them, like, how does that impact your life every day? Why are you spending so much time on this? I don't help me understand. Whether it be, let's just take President Obama and President Trump, because there's plenty of people that just absolutely loved and or absolutely hated both of those guys. And I don't get it. Like, how does it impact your life every day, one way or the other? Let's say
Yeah.
that, he walked on water. Then his detractors are going to say the headline the next day says he can't swim. Like, who cares? What do you like? What did you do today? Did you sit around and think about this? How much time did you spend thinking about this? Couldn't you have been doing something productive? Couldn't you have been moving towards your goals? Couldn't you have been moving your life forward? Like it's wild how people think about that stuff. But it feels like because of technology, people just get inundated with all of these thoughts and ideas and images and videos and memes and blah, 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 blah. And I think they finally just kind of give in to them and like start to drink the Kool-Aid. I can't think of a different way to say it.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason like trillions of dollars have been poured into capturing people's attention and that from social media. Like, so when we can recognize I mean, I love that documentary that was not The Social Network, but it was something about social media, and it had all the heads of social media, not all the heads, but many people who have either been or participated in, and they talk about like most of them don't have their kids on social media.
Mm.
And there's a reason. Like my kids are not getting social media, not until they can present to me a valid, cohesive argument as to why it's beneficial to their life, mental health, goals, etc. But I think when we the skill set to develop in this next decade is really understanding your own agency and capacity. We have never, as far as our history understands, been able to have so much information about so much trauma around the world and yet still live in our house and in comfort. So it creates this big dichotomy in our minds, and our understanding and our capacity of, I love what you focus on, is like, just focus on what you can do. What can you do? Okay, I see a bill's getting like a bill is on the table that I don't like. I can write my senator. That's one thing I can do.
Yep.
But I other than that and vote, no, I'm like, I would rather focus myself on building a successful, sustainable business, helping other people build successful, sustainable businesses, helping good, conscious leaders make more money, because when good, conscious leaders make more money, they change the world.
Right.
Like you can't do it if you're broke. So you can vote with your dollar far more effectively, I think.
And you know what's crazy about all that negativity is there's literally never been a better time to be alive as a human being than right now today. Like
Yeah.
every single metric is the best that it's ever been. There's less people living in poverty globally than there's ever been at any time in history. Believe it or not, there's less conflict. This is the most peaceful the earth has
Yes.
been at any time in human history. Life expectancy has never been as long as it is right now in human history. Women's rights are better now than they ever were in human history. There's less slavery now than there's ever been in human history. Metric after metric after metric proves that it's the best time ever to be alive as a human being. And yet, all we talk about are negative things. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
And
And the
it's
mental
useless.
health of kids.
Yeah, I won't do it.
Like,
I won't do
yeah.
it.
I think the best thing you can do as a parent is teach your kids resiliency, teach your kids about nervous system regulation, because they are going to have so many distractions available and cop outs and so much ease at their fingertips, more than we have ever even comprehended. So how do you work with in a success minded world to grow something that does require devotion, hard work, discipline, and cultivating those character traits in a world that is literally set up with so much ease that you can just DoorDash dinner and not even have to worry about it. And I'm all for ease and comfort. Like, yes, bring on ease and comfort, but you can't have it without the discipline. Like, you won't be getting DoorDash if you don't have the discipline of going to your job every day, or going to work every day, or going out there and making sales every day. So you do the hard things so that you can get the ease.
That's right. Yeah, adversity builds character and it's good for you. And you need
Yeah.
to intentionally put yourself in difficult situations so you can grow as a person. Totally agree with you. There's zero uh evidence to the contrary. Like it's
Yeah.
what builds good people, right?
And it's so, I was talking to a client of mine and she was like, Kim, my son does not understand, you know, what I went through for him. And I was like, he shouldn't. You built greater ease for him. You built financial security for your family, changing the bloodline of your family, building in financial security for your family and freedom, so that he can go off and struggle in a different way. But he's not going to understand how you struggled, because it's very different and he's not supposed to. Like, I don't understand. Like, my dad was a first generation entrepreneur, both my parents were. And that's a struggle in and of itself, breaking free from a system. Like, my dad came from a military family. Like, you don't,
Oh,
like, they didn't understand, why are you going to Hollywood to be an actor and start a business. That's weird. There's no security, quote unquote, in that.
Right.
So being able, like, there was hard for him that he had to figure out. I had my version of hard and trauma, and he had his version of hard and trauma. His was harder, probably, but mine was my version of hard for me. And now my kids get their version of hard, but it's going to look different than what I had. And when we can recognize that the next generation is not supposed to carry the trauma, because we do our own work and do that internal work to clear up the subconscious, to set different foundations so that they have a new floor to rise to the next floor. We don't want to keep them on the ground floor always because, oh, well, we're on the ground floor.
Right.
We want to help them build that next floor. And then they don't know what the ground floor looks like. They'll have a better view. They'll have more support structure in place, but they're going to have a different set of hard because now they got to build the next floor for the next generation.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Well, so Kim, one of the things I do as we wind up here is I like to open the floor. So I've asked a lot of questions. We've covered a ton of territory, and you've been such a great guest and so captivating and so forthcoming, and just have such good lessons that you've taught our audience. I absolutely love it. I want to thank you for that. But is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to talk about? Is there any subjects we haven't covered you want to make sure you get out while we're talking to the audience here?
Ooh. I'm sure there's many, but I think we'll just have to save that for a follow-up episode.
There you go.
Because my baby girl, I can feel her is getting hungry.
Nope, you beat me to the punch. We'll absolutely have you back. I'll stay in touch with you, and somewhere down the road we will do this again because there's so much territory to cover here. And I absolutely loved having you on the podcast. You did such a great job. You're welcome anytime. So if you have anything you want to talk about, or it's important to come back on, by all means, hit us up because you've always got an invitation here.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Did a great job.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You got it. Great job, Kim. Man, you killed it.
Awesome. I just didn't know if you turned off the recording.
Yeah, I do the intro and outro, so it's all in one spot for James. He'll just cut all this part out, so no big deal.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks so much. I know how breastfeeding goes. Go relieve the pressure.
Relieve the pressure. Before I go, is there any way that I can, besides sharing the episode with my community, is there any way that I can contribute to your success with what you're building? A connection that I can make, something?
Just in terms of with communication queens, if you have other guests that now that you kind of see how we operate, that would fit with us. I know you talked about potentially your husband being a guest as well.
Yes.
I'm always looking for interesting guests, and that to me is the most important part of it. I want to expose our audience to awesome people. So I know you know awesome people.
I know some awesome people. I will send a connection to hubby, and that's good because my hubby is launching his membership as well. He was like, it's called Eat My Anime, combining his love for cooking and his 30-year history of voicing anime characters.
Oh my gosh, what a great title.
He's king of titles. He's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
I will make some introductions, and while I am nursing my little girl, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Really appreciate it.
Talking to you.
Yeah, thanks,
Bye,
Kim.
Joe.
Have a great night. All right, guys. Like I said, Kim is the real deal. Talk about a high quality person. That is Kim at her core. So really appreciated her candidness, her willingness to share on what a lot of people consider difficult subjects. And she was so willing to kind of cover those and how she made her way through those and how she built a life because of those experiences, not in spite of those experiences. Talked about the great relationship she has with her husband, great relationship she has with her kids, and that sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not easy, and sometimes she has to feel those emotions and let them be and then move forward from them. Talked about her business and taking action and how she's made different iterations of her business, just What a great job by Kim. Like we said at the end there, we'll have her back anytime she wants to come on. And just really appreciate her time and her energy on the program. So, look, James puts it up right over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are there. Links to all the social media accounts are there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. It's super helpful for us. And do not miss the next episode. We give you great tips on how to build the life you want. We bring guests on that have awesome tips to help you build the life you want by sharing their experiences and what they've learned from them. They are awesome. They are the people that you want to listen to. You don't want to miss the next awesome person we have on. We will see you on the next episode.